Good morning, Miramar, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Tamara G. As always, you can check us out on our social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at City of Miramar. And with us today, two very special ladies that we've actually had them on the show before, and we love having them on because they are talking about what is truly become a health crisis, not just in South Florida, but around the world. It is National Recovery Month, and that is recovery from addiction. And we are so happy to have Susan Nyamura. She is the president and CEO of South Florida Wellness Network, along with Rachel Craig Dunn. She is the family program supervisor, Federation of Families for South Florida Wellness Network. So welcome back to the show, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us, Tamara.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Tamara.
We are happy to have you because, truth be told, I know that September is National Recovery Month, but every month is National Recovery Month. So let's talk a little bit about that, Susan, and what South Florida Wellness Network is all about when it comes to getting on that road of recovery.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time just to highlight Recovery Month and the work that we're doing in the community. For those of you that don't know, I do identify as a woman in long-term recovery. And essentially what that means for me is no hospitalizations, no incarcerations in almost 17 years now. And so South Florida Wellness Network is a recovery community organization that is really built in working with individuals in or seeking recovery are those that are at risk, right? And so we work across the lifespan, pretty much starting at the age of 12, all the way up until whenever that is for somebody, right? And so we provide a lot of recovery support services, which is a low barrier access to support and linkage to other types of services.
So you just mentioned something, and I want Rachel to get into this as she is over the family program supervisor, but you just said from the age of 12 on.
Yes.
I remember what I was doing at 12, Susan and Rachel. It was not drugs. How is this happening in our communities, and why is it happening?
So I'll jump in here, Tamara, and I'll say that, at the age of 12, it's not just substance use disorder that we're talking about, but it's also emotional and behavioral and mental health. And a lot of times people separate the two. They separate addiction and substance use disorder from mental health. And it is a mental health disorder. It is. Medically and in the DSM-5, it's categorized as a mental health issue. So our children at ages 12, and even before now, because we're seeing youth being Baker acted at age 4 and 6 in Broward County. So that's even younger. But, at that age, hormones are rampant. We have a lot of stuff going on in our society. I have to say that COVID has just made things even more increased in terms of suicidality, substance use. We have poverty, we've had domestic violence increases. All of these things impact our children and our youth. So that is why we say we start at age 12, because that age is definitely, a critical age for our youth. They're going into, their adolescence. So that is when certain things start to manifest.
So let me ask this question of Susan, because, people think that folks who do drugs, they come from a family of drug addicts. They've been using drugs everybody in the family uses drugs. They've been using them for years, and it's just a vicious cycle. What are you finding with most of your clientele and your patients that are coming in to the wellness center?
So it varies, but I will guarantee you one thing for sure. 99% of the individuals that come to our Center for Services have experienced trauma. That is, I can guarantee you that. And we see that quite often. And oftentimes it's not just physical trauma, it's psychological trauma and also sexual trauma. So again, the drugs are just a symptom of what's going on. So usually there's that underlying family background of things that have happened and that have transform somewhere, right? Somewhere along the line, something happened. And, as I said, I'm a person in long-term recovery, and I can go back as far as 5 years old, where I first started being impacted by trauma. And when we talk about the adverse childhood experiences with some of our young people, I personally score a 10 out of a 10, which meant 9 times out of 10, I was going to end up with a mental health or a substance use disorder. However, we don't look at that as often as we should. And when we're looking at whole health and we're bringing our children into the pediatrician's office and we're doing that PH9 score where we're checking for depression, if we started looking at the ACE scores, we may be able to intervene a little bit sooner. And one of the things that I'm a big proponent on is prevention. Because if we invest in the front end, we won't have to invest on the back end, and we won't have to bury our children, right? And so I think what we're seeing here is there is a family genetic in there. Because I'll tell you, out of my 6 siblings, there were 4 of us that had substance use or mental health. My children have had their own challenges. I have 6 children. They've had their own challenges. But I will tell you today, my children, we don't have those. We've been able to break that cycle, right? We talk about breaking the cycle. So they get educated and we work on the prevention side instead of the acute care model. So as a parent, I'm able to early intervene with my children and get them the critical support that they need, whether it's for their emotional well-being or their physical health, because they're all tied together. And that's what happens oftentimes is we see our youth doing things and they're like, oh, it's the hormones. We don't look at it as it may be being an early sign that there may be some kind of heightened emotions going on or something happening. And then these kids are struggling to cope and maintain in this society. And then one of their friends comes along and goes, hey, bro, you want to hit this vape? Why don't you just hit this vape? And then they hit the vape and there's something in it. And all of a sudden they feel a little different. And they even may feel a little bit normal. And they may feel like everybody likes them. And so now we may have the early start and early onset of self-medicating, which is where the substance use condition comes from most of the time.
If you are just tuning in, we are speaking with Susan Nyamura. She is the president and CEO of South Florida Wellness Network. We also have Rachel Craig Dunn. She is the family program supervisor, Federation of Families, South Florida Wellness Network. And I want to ask you this, Rachel, as someone who deals with the families directly, how important is it to recognize that addiction is a mental health condition? It is not a sign of you're weak or, you can't handle life, you can't handle the truth, whereas it may be something that is happening here that you don't even know that it's happening.
Right. So that's a really great question, Tamara. So one of the things that we do is when we are engaging our family members, we have to start with the parents because, as you know, South Florida is a melting pot and we're coming from all different kinds of cultures with all different kinds of stigma and miseducation about mental health and substance use. So we have to start there and really have some one-on-one deep conversations with parents and see where they're at and really grasp what is happening in the home, and then open up to them different types of coping skills and wellness tools so that they can start to use these in their own families, because a lot of times we go from generation to generation repeating patterns that we've learned in our homes, right? So we are just going to introduce some healthier coping skills and wellness tools into the family and get parents to open up about how they see things, what they feel, and how they're parenting, because it really impacts a youth's mental health. And then they may be more prone to using substances, as Susan said before. So it's really about emotional support and connecting and having some honest conversations.
I don't think that if people were watching this now, and if you're just tuning in, thank you so much for watching Good Morning Miramar. We're speaking about National Recovery Month from addiction. And we have Susan, who is the president and CEO of South Florida Wellness Network, also has her master's of social work. She has a whole bunch of other letters behind her name. Rachel is the same, MBA for Rachel, and a lot of other letters. But Susan, you just shared, and I know that you do this often because you want people to know that you can come out of addiction. But you shared that you were 17 years, you're 17 years now, free of addiction. This is what addiction looks like, because no one would ever know that. And if you don't mind sharing, what was your drug of choice and why do you think that you were using?
So I had polysubstance use, which meant I had more than one, but cocaine and benzodiazepine, Xanax. I happen to be a person who lives with a diagnosis of a mood condition as well, also known as bipolar disorder. And so my first drugs that I was prescribed were benzodiazepines to kind of stabilize my highs and my lows and all of that wonderful stuff that we often sometimes mimic by the weather and things like that, but they're really very difficult health conditions to live with if you aren't in recovery management. So between the Xanax and the cocaine, because I'm also a sexual assault survivor, going to sleep was not an option for me. And being out there, hanging out, having a good time, sleeping was a scary space for me because of the fact of things that would happen in the places that I put myself in when I was not doing well. So for me, working on my recovery has meant so much more than just removing the drugs, right? It meant finding that higher power greater than myself, who I choose to call God today, that has really kind of helped me in my journey, because I work on my recovery every single day. So we celebrate Recovery Month, but every single day I get up, I thank God, and I do the things that I can possibly do to help others in the community. And one of the most critical moments and pivotal moments for me in my life was really my children. They're my motivator. They cannot keep me staying functional and they can't keep me well, but they're my motivation. And I was really looking at a pretty hefty prison sentence back in 2006, and I was pregnant with my 5th child. And so I had to make some significant changes in my life, and I was fortunate that I had an advocate come in. And so since then, I've kind of been on this trajectory of just stay in the middle and just doing the right thing. And so today, I live my life in a very free space, and I can do service for others, but I can also work in the community. And I am also a statewide and national advocate for recovery supports and making sure that people that come from those areas that some people lock their doors in, because I was one of those areas, that we're able to recognize that people can, and they do change and they do recover, and they live very successful lives. I've been able to get clemency and have my rights restored, and I'm a voter today, and I champion other people to vote. And I love family, right? Family is a lot for me, and that's why Rachel and I get along so well in Federation, because it started there for me. It's having that family that I needed, that paid attention, that if they saw something off, that they would say, hey, what's going on today? And I think sometimes today in life, we're so busy and we don't take that extra time because we're giving so much of ourselves to the world, or maybe working 2 jobs because we have to pay our bills, but really just remembering to say, hey, how you doing today? And share a little bit of love with your family is so important, and to listen more than anything, and be that rock star for your family unit.
I don't think that we can get away from the drug that is just literally taking over and creating so much more havoc. I mean, you don't even hear about cocaine and crack and heroin anymore because it's all about fentanyl. Tell us a little bit about that, Rachel, and how that is really, it is creating even more problems than probably all of those drugs put together.
Right, yes. So I have to say it is a very scary space for us here now in Broward County. As Susan says, we're championing it. We're fighting to save lives every day. I actually had a phone call into Broward schools this morning with a social worker speaking, because we need to get Narcan into the schools. You know, in Miami-Dade, they have Narcan in the schools. Broward County, we don't have Narcan in the schools yet. And that is something that, you know, it's in our community. So we need to have something that can counteract if somebody does have an overdose available in our schools for our children. You know, in a nurse's station, that's something that we should have. And we have to really make people aware, because a lot of people think this is not going to happen to me or to my family member, but they don't know what their children are exposed to every day out there at school. I can tell you, I came from a family, my immediate family, nobody smoked, nobody used drugs. We didn't do that. We didn't drink. We didn't have that. That doesn't mean that it couldn't affect my children and their friends, right? Because it's in the community that we're in. So that is why I became a champion. I came to South Florida Wellness Network years ago to Susan, because I was experiencing certain things in my own family. And I was like, what is going on? I didn't have that in my home. So I didn't think it was something that could touch my home, but it can touch anybody's home. And because fentanyl is so rampant and it is so toxic, you know, we really need to bring knowledge and education to everybody out there. We're having resource fairs. We have town councils. We do podcasts at South Florida Wellness Network. You know, all our staff, we have so many staff that have had encounters with, you know, overdoses, and they've lived to tell the tale, and they're now in recovery and they're changing lives. So what we have found is that the peer support works. Because if somebody is struggling with a substance use disorder, and most times they don't even, some people may not think they need help, or they're as bad as they are, or they're so entrenched in it, they don't know how to get out, right? And when they need a peer specialist, like a Susan Nakamura, who 17 years ago was there, and today now she's running a company and running a $1 million company, right? Multi-millions. So recovery is possible, and there is hope, and that is what we stand for, and that's the message that we want to share, especially during Recovery Month.
And I think too that, you know, so many people don't know that fentanyl is truly that deadly.
It is.
The first time that you come across it, we're hearing reports. Well, one of the first people that immediately comes to mind is Prince. Who would have thought Prince would have died from a fentanyl overdose? Nobody in their right mind. We didn't even know he was using drugs. And then, you know, you hear the story of there was a daycare in the Bronx where the kids, one child did die, a 1-year-old, and the other ones, they were laying on a mat that had the fentanyl underneath the mat. It didn't even touch them, but because of the potency of it, or, you know, maybe it was seeping through the mat some kind of way, it wasn't like they were playing in the fentanyl or anything like that. They were on top of it. And a toddler died, and 3 others are now in stable condition. But, you know, people just, I don't think they realize how potent it is, which is why you guys have all of that Narcan there. I'd love to show, you know, please turn your camera a little bit so people can see that, you know, you guys,
we call it our wall,
our Narcan wall.
Full wall of Narcan to help people who are experiencing an overdose. But you know what? There are people who do not want this in schools. Rachel, you just mentioned about Broward County hasn't said yes that yet. Miami-Dade has. There are people who don't want it. I know New York has it on the streets now. They have it like in a vending machine that you can get it. So what do you say to people who, you know, are losing loved ones, have lost loved ones when they could have been saved by a shot of Narcan?
Yeah, you know, that's such a hard thing, and it's so controversial. You know, we hear this all the time, and you know, the reality of it is Tamara, is, you know, if you have an opportunity to save somebody's life, but no matter what it takes, you know, whether it's through an EpiPen, whether it's through CPR, whether it's through an AED machine, why would we not want to do that, right? And oftentimes, and this is the stigma that's associated with substance use or substance use disorders, because people feel that it's a choice, right? And you're right. Some people do choose that, you know, guess what, we're going to go out tonight, we're going to party a little bit, and if something happens, then, they think it's on them. But, this drug does not discriminate at all. Alcohol is a drug too, but we don't want to say shame on that drug driver, and, we don't care what happens to him. We want to make sure that we're providing, life-saving support to anybody, right? We'll deal with the other stuff later, and that's what we tell people all the time, and families. We've had first responders, law enforcement have come and said, we're not interested in taking that. And that's okay. That's their choice. But at the end of the day, for us, it's a matter of, can we lay our head down tonight, because we know that we did the best that we could do for everybody in our community, irregardless of who they are, because it's just that one moment, when that one time when you're going to get that call from somebody that you would have never, ever thought would ever touch a drug, and they're going to say, Susan, I need your help. And I've had so many of those phone calls where they're like, just the guilt and shame that gets plagued by family members because they don't want to tell somebody. Because if somebody overdoses or if they get Baker acted, your neighbor is not going to take them a casserole. But I can guarantee you, if they have a heart attack or get into a car accident, somebody's going to come rushing over to bring your family a casserole. And that's the difference of what's going on. And, if all I can say is this: love conquers hate.
Right.
Love conquers hate in all things that we do, and we have a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. And speaking of that work, please tell people how they can get in touch. We're going to talk about a great event that you guys are having this weekend. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be helping to MC that. But let's talk about how people can find out more information if they have loved ones, Rachel, who are going through addiction, if they're the person who needs in recovery, how to get in touch with South Florida Wellness Network and even Federation of Families.
Okay, so the first number for them to call is 954-533-0585. Again, 954-533-0585. And they can just call and speak with any of the our receptionists or operators that answer to say, I need help. It could be mental health or substance use, or they may have a youth or a child that's acting up, and it could be an emotional and behavioral issue. And so we'll take an intake and get somebody to them as soon as possible. Also, we're available on Facebook, on Instagram. We have Federation of Families Broward, and we have South Florida Wellness Network. We're available there, and people can message us on any of those three: Facebook, Instagram, for both Federation of Families Broward and South Florida Wellness Network.
And of course, there is going to be a great celebration happening this weekend in Hollywood at Arts Park. Tell us a little bit about that, Susan.
Yeah, so we're super excited. We get to champion Broward Recovery Month. We have an amazing venue and some great artists, performers that are going to be out there. But even prior to that event, at 3:00 this Saturday, September 23rd, we kick off with our vendor resource fairs. There's going to be over 32 vendors that are out there sharing information, sharing resources on how you can get involved, or any kind of help that you may need if you have a loved one that may be experiencing something, or if it's you yourself. Most importantly, it is a family-friendly event that is funded and supported by all of the amazing sponsors and private providers that are giving us the money to do this. There's going to be food trucks out there. There's going to be ice cream trucks, gaming trucks, you name it. It's going to be out there, and it is fully free to the community. So we invite people to come out, have a good time, have some dance with us. We're going to be raffling off some bicycles and some amazing things. And of course, giving away none other than the South Florida Wellness Network swag. So please join us on Saturday. We will be out there from 3 p.m. till 10 p.m. having a great time.
Perfect.
Thank
and I'll
you.
be actually out there from 6 to 8, looking forward to hosting that part of the event, and just giving back to people who are trying. Folks it'd be different if no one was trying to help themselves or trying to get better, but they're trying, or their family members are helping them or trying to help them. So we encourage everyone to come out. Again, it is a free event in Hollywood at Arts Park, right there around the circle downtown. You guys have a great location, but everybody's going to be there. So great location downtown Hollywood. It is going to be amazing. Again, starting at 3:00. Lots of fun and festivities for the family, and all free. And please take advantage. As Susan and Rachel both said, more than 30 organizations, medical care, hospital care, just wellness information for you and your family. So please come out. It's all free, and that will definitely help you to help someone in your life. So thank you all so very much. Again, Rachel, can you give them more information, that phone number or the website for South Florida Wellness?
Sure. So the website is www.sfwn.org, and our telephone number is 954-533-0585, 954-533-0585. And just to let you know, we have 2 locations now. Last year, yes, we have 2 locations. One is 6969 Taft Street, right in Hollywood. It's an amazing location. I invite anybody to come out and see it. It is youth friendly. We have an amazing podcast, a biofeedback sound bedroom. We have a lot of things for the youth to enjoy there. And then our facility is at 5225 Northwest 33rd Ave in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So welcome all.
And thank you all so very much for joining me once again. We certainly appreciate it. Again, it is Broward Recovery Month, National Recovery Month overall. But as we mentioned at the start of the program, every month and every day is recovery. So we want people to please be on their best and in their best lives and living their best lives. So please go on that road to recovery. Susan Nyamura, she is the president and CEO of South Florida Wellness Network, as well as Rachel Craig Dunn. She is the family program supervisor, Federation of Families and South Florida Wellness Network. Thank you, ladies, so much. And I look forward to seeing you guys on Saturday.
Thank you, Tamara.
See you Saturday.
And thank you for watching Good Morning Miramar. Until next time, I'm Tamara G. See ya.